Hello, 8th graders. It's Wednesday, so welcome back to English class. Please make sure that you watch this video in its entirety because there are some specific instructions that you need to follow that are only going to be in this video. So make sure that you're watching it in its entirety so that you know what to do. For today, you need to make sure that you write in your journal again. Try to make it at least that page. A little bit less is okay, but not a whole lot less than that. And remember, that's double space. So if you're single spacing, a half of a page is fine. You should have already turned in your roots on Monday. You are working on your no red ink. If you have not finished your no red ink practice, make sure that you finish that by the end of today. And then you're also going to be doing a close read on StudySync based on what you already read on Monday. And that's what we're going to talk about here really fast. So I'm not going to do a ton of history, but I want to touch on a little bit about the Battle of Gettysburg because you read the Gettysburg Address. I know that I don't know, I'm pretty sure that you all stopped at Gettysburg on your DC trip this year back in September. I know that that's usually on the itinerary. And I know that you guys are talking about the Civil War, or you normally do, in your history class this quarter. So most of this information is not going to be new to you. We're just going to be taking a look specifically at this speech. And you should feel pretty lucky. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I actually had to memorize this speech for a grade in my history class, so at least you don't have to do that. The Battle of Gettysburg was a huge turning point for the Union, for the North. This was the second time that General Lee had attempted to infiltrate the North with his army, but he was unsuccessful. There were approximately 51,000 casualties altogether, and of those, 7,000 of those were deaths. So it was a very bloody battle that ultimately the Union ended up winning, and they ended up forcing the Confederates to retreat back to Virginia, and this was seen as a huge victory for the Union. Now, that took place in July 1st through the 3rd, and the Gettysburg Address wasn't given until November 19th. That's because the Gettysburg Address was actually written to help dedicate the place where all the soldiers were buried, the cemetery. And believe it or not, you probably already know this if you visited, Lincoln was not the main speaker at this event. They actually had someone else speaking who spoke for about 2 hours, and then President Lincoln was supposed to just give some short remarks dedicating the new cemetery and honoring kind of the fallen soldiers. And he ended up writing the Gettysburg Address, which apparently he thought would not be remembered, and that it wasn't kind of the most important thing being said, but it turns out that it's one of the most famous speeches in our history. So it's definitely something that's worth looking at, especially in the context of our unit that we're doing right now. It's one of the most important things for us to look at because we're trying to look at the Civil War and how it kind of shaped and redefined America and how America was different from before to after the Civil War. So this speech kind of highlights a lot of those differences in the redefining. So it's a very important one to take a look at. So let's go ahead and look here. You've got some skill focus questions. There's 5 of them. Most of the skill focus questions focus on main idea. And we've talked about main idea quite a few times this year already, so you should be somewhat familiar with that. You're going to find the main ideas. There's more than one. There can be more than one. By looking at, okay, what do all of these paragraphs seem to be supporting or trying to prove, and that's going to be a main idea. And there's a main idea within each paragraph as well. What are these individual sentences within a paragraph also trying to prove? And you're going to have a main idea per paragraph and a main idea for the entire speech as a whole. Now, it's a pretty short speech, so there's not like a lot of different main ideas going on, but there's definitely more than one. With the main one, you can see skill focus question number 1. It already tells you. It says, as you reread the text of the Gettysburg Address, remember that one of the main ideas is that the Civil War is being fought to preserve the Union. And so it's asking you to find some details from the text that support that idea. There's also another main idea in here, and that's question number 3, is to identify a different main idea and kind of provide evidence for that as well. And then question number 5 on here says, how does Lincoln believe that the Civil War will redefine America? And I told you that's kind of a big essential question that we're going to kind of look at over and over here. So what I want you to do is I want you to do skill focus question number 5, and then I want you to choose one other skill focus question to do. 1, 2, 3, or 4. That doesn't matter to me. Just that you do number 5. That's what I'm requiring. Number 5 and one other question. This is a short piece. It's only, I want to say, 272 words. So it's something that I want you to read and then maybe reread as well to try and figure out what's the main idea. I want you to look at word choice. Some of these words you might not know what they mean. Go ahead and look those words up so that you understand what they mean, especially in the context. And then I want you to look at the writing prompt that goes along with this, and you're going to answer that and make sure that you're looking at the requirements for that, because I want to say that it asks you to write 200 words. And a lot of you, when I've been going back and grading your close reads, you haven't quite been meeting the requirements. So you need to make sure that you understand what's expected so that you can meet that expectation. Use complete sentences, use capital letters, use periods, all that fun stuff that makes up complete sentences. I think that this is a pretty pivotal piece in this unit, so this is not one that you want to kind of skim over and not really read thoroughly. Next week, you are going to have that quiz I told you about already on No Red Ink. About some of the things that you've been practicing for the last couple of weeks. So that means you're not going to have a new Study Sync first read to do on Monday, just as a heads up. So remember that you've got that quiz coming up. You're going to be prepared for it if you've been doing the practices, because it's all about kind of making complete sentences and things like that, some things that we really need to work on. I think that's all that I have for you. If you have questions, feel free to please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to meet you on Google Meets or answer your questions through email, or however you need to get help, let me know, and I'm more than willing to help you. I think that's it. Have a great week.